Okay, so here we are for the grand final for the Popolot Super Series, the second one of the year, and we're at the Games Den today. So in the finals here, we've got John DeCop versus Dominic, and John is playing a Grixis coloured Through the Breach Goryo's deck, and Dominic is again on Esper Control. So on turn one, John has played a Scalding Tarn, sacked it to cast a Serum Visions, and then pass the turn. So we can see in John's hand from what we've had a look, he also has a Faithless Looting and a Blackcleave Cliffs, a Gristlebrand and a Jace. So he is just looking for some type of reanimation or the Through the Breach to put that Gristlebrand into play and get the wheels turning towards the Emrakul. Dominic has led with Flooded Strand into his own Serum Visions. Okay, John opting to play the Jace rather than Faithless Looting. Seems like a pretty reasonable idea. It's a discard outlet for the Grizzlebrand if he wants to put that one in the graveyard, and as well he can work towards flipping that Planeswalker to start flashing back some spells. Dominic is just going to immediately go for a Path to Exile on the Jace. Obviously looking to remove that discard outlet, and then he's just going to play a Dark Slick Shores.
This is a very interesting take on the Grishol brand. I was actually incorrect. It is not Grishol brand. It is just a Through the Breach, Goryo's Vengeance type deck. There is no Nourishing Shoal. We're looking at things like Is It Charm, Serum Visions, Goryo's, Through the Breach, some Bolts and Thoughtseize in the main, but mainly focused around Spirit Guides, Jace, Grizzlebrand, and Emrakul. I think one of the funniest plays that I've experienced is Through the Breach into Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, to loot, but not quite flip the Jace, just to loot. So let's hope John has some more successful Through the Breaches, or else this might be a fairly quick game, even if he is against a control player.
That is a pretty interesting Through the Breach there. What I was wondering is, how often do you think those Thoughtseizers target John himself? How often does he go, Thoughtseize me, discard this?
I think it depends. If you're against an opponent who you know can interact, or who you think can interact with your combo, I'm gonna call it, you're gonna target them. Also, if you've got an Is It Charm or another discard outlet, you're probably gonna target them. But if you need to get something within, here we see a Faithless Looting.
So we're exiling Simian Spirit Guide to Faithless Looting. So
Some spicy tech.
has he drawn the Through the Breach and he's looking for a land? Oh. No, he has the Goryo's Vengeance. And he's discarded Emrakul, trigger on the stack, Goryo's Vengeance, my Emrakul.
So taking a look at it, it doesn't look like Dominic's got any way to really interact with that. So we see a Dismember. So A, it can't target the Emrakul, and B, it's just gonna keep him alive for another turn.
I think he's actually just...
He's dead.
I mean, he's not actually dead, he's on 2, but it seems pretty impossible for him to come back here.
He's on 2. He can't cast much. He can't take pain from his lands.
So That is the power of Goryo's
Cool.
vengeance, I guess.
I mean, one of the disadvantages that Dominic has, unfortunately, is with no main board counter magic, this is just going to happen unless John stumbles hard enough. So this is, speaking to a few people before, this is either going to be the quickest 3 games or 2 games that we've had, or they're going to be very slow as Dominic tries to close out the game in between John cheating stuff in.
Just attempting to interact. Yeah. Okay. Players just discussing, I think, when the shuffle was happening from the Emrakul trigger, but
I don't think it matters too much.
no, I
This isn't quite infinite life, but I think you're pretty dead if you're Dominic.
he's.
Shambling against what?
I'm actually not sure what's being considered right now. I imagine they're discussing the Annihilator trigger.
I'd actually forgotten about that in all of Emrakul's glory. I think it's time for Dominic to scoop.
Yes.
I hate to say that. It's not looking good for him.
It's one of those situations where he might be able to survive a couple of extra turns, but there's very, very...
Well, I mean, any permanents he puts down are either going to do nothing for a few turns if they're lands, because they need to tap or it's not great.
Still seem to be sitting here with an Emrakul attacking. I'm not sure whether there's some discussion of Annihilator being missed. I'm not quite sure why Dominic still has lands. Yes, that...
So the Annihilator trigger was not declared. It is not a must trigger, and it's something that needs to be announced as far as it's been made aware to me now. So doesn't look like Dominic had to sack his permanents. And this is drastic. I mean, with the Annihilator trigger on the stack, Dominic was left with nothing and almost the potential to do nothing.
Yeah.
If we assume that his hand of 4 or 5 cards was 2 lands and 3 spells. But in this case, John's been severely punished for just assuming that it would happen.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what Dominic can get going here, because as we saw before, he really doesn't have very many ways in the main deck to actually interact with the Goryo's Vengeance sort of contraption.
You bring in spells, you bring in negates, you bring in relics, obviously. Is there anything else you'd bring in?
Negate the spell. Relic. No, I think that's about all that you have in Dominic's sideboard that you would be looking to bring in. In terms of John's sideboard, he has his own dispels, which I think will come in. But other than that, he's just got some sort of targeted hate cards, Vandal Blast, Shatterstorm, Big Game Hunter, Echoing Truth,
I think Big
that
Game
type of
Hunter is,
thing.
John's playing Big Game Hunter.
He
That's
is, yeah.
interesting. I think
He does have a lot of discard outlets, so madness is pretty real. Okay, so Dominic's just opted to play a Liliana and just start attacking the hand. Okay, John couldn't really do too much that turn. He goes for a Faithless Looting and then plays a Polluted Delta and just passes the turn, so I guess he's just attempting to reload and find another copy of Goryo's Vengeance. Or
I think against Dominic's deck, it does specifically need to be Emrakul, because he's just got so many ways he can interact with Grizzlebrand. As we've discussed about Jace Friend's Prodigy being put in, it might be legendary, but it's suboptimal if it doesn't flip.
yes, Emrakul definitely looks a lot better, but also because Dominic's not threatening John's life total. Grizzlebrand has the potential to draw a lot of cards. So usually if you can get the Grizzlebrand into play, you'll find the Emrakul, I think.
I mean, Dominic has no quick way to deal imminent amounts of damage apart from, I think, Gideon attacking maybe. So he's safe on that front. Let's see where it takes him.
Yes. I'm wondering whether Dominic is going upwards with Liliana with the ultimate in mind, or whether he's just attacking the hand. I'll be interested to see, if he does just pull the trigger on that ultimate. Okay, so is John's found an Emrakul, but is just shuffling everything back in. Okay.
Oh, I see.
That's sort of unfortunate for John, I imagine, to find that Emrakul but not have sufficient mana to, Goryo's that in. Makes me wonder whether it was the best possible play to pay the 3 mana to flashback Faithless Looting there if your best hit doesn't quite pay off unless you hit the Simian Spirit Guide. So a little risky. Okay, Liliana goes up and gets the last card. It's a Serum Visions. Dominic pays 2 life and gets the Sun's Champion down. So that's a very fast clock now. So John does not have very many turns before Elspeth Sun's Champion is going to go ultimate and her
Flying 3/3.
Yes.
Soldiers get in there.
So John just draws his card for the turn and passes back. It'll be interesting to see how he responds. Like, if he does lose this game, how he responds to that in future games, whether that affects his mentality in the game.
This deck, it functions off such high variance. I mean, turn 2 or 3, it was like, I'm going to 15 you in the face.
Yes.
And, I mean, Dominic didn't even need that Sphinx's Rev to gain the life. He was just...
Okay, so Dominic plays a Ghost Quarter. Ghost Quarter is the Blackleaf Cliffs, just attempting to cut John off of coloured mana there.
John plays a Swamp, a Mountain, and 2 islands in terms of basics, so he can get the Swamp and still have access to every colour it requires for the Grixis mana base.
Yeah, that's true. I'm wondering what Liliana is going to do here. Liliana goes ultimate, so...
Oh, that's a hard one. You have to take the red-blue, unfortunately. But I think the combination of Ghost Quarter plus the Lily ultimate was pretty savage.
Yes, it was quite strong.
Elspeth unsurprisingly goes up, just making some more dudes.
Yeah, Elspeth just
needs to Elspeth, basically.
Just putting the clock out there and...
But I mean, that's the thing. It's similar to when he was playing against Malira. You need a clock, because otherwise you're almost unable to contend with the bigger things that they can be doing. John draws a Faithless Looting.
Faithless into discard Goryo's land, I think. So
It is a Goryo's land and he does have something in the bin. That would be very, very sweet. But Dominic's going to get in there for 6.
it's just... Yep, Dominic ghost quartering the steam vents. John goes and fetches a mountain. It's probably not changing very much what he can play here, but
He can't get a black metal source, unfortunately.
wait, lightning. He drew a lightning bolt
For game one and a handshake.
for lethal. Wow. Okay, so that.
And didn't want those, did you? Operate at high variance, and you get rewarded. I
There
don't
you
think
go.
I could ever imagine myself playing this deck. And this comes from someone who spent many months playing Amulet of Gloom. That variance is wow. Okay. We're going to game two. John is up a game. You might have missed it because at one point Dominic was on like 2, and he just had a very dominating board state, and John had 2 lands, but John did close out that game. John put him to 2 about 15 turns ago and finally got there.
Yeah.
We're going to game 2. Let's see what Gorus does on the draw. And I mean, where are the thought seizes at, Dominic?
Interestingly, though, if we do consider the way like John's draws progressed through that game, even if he had triggered Emrakul,
Yeah.
he still would have had to wait
Yeah,
that large
absolutely.
number of turns
And
to actually finish the
I
game.
think the fact that you're missing here is that had the Emrakul thing triggered, Dominic might have just skipped.
That is true. He would have
entirely possible.
definitely been much less able to play Elspeth, but that was very straight off the top lightning bolt. Getcha.
Now, in hindsight, do you think that is enough reason to bring in the 3rd lightning bolt from the board, bring in some Grim Lavamancer and get your burn plan on through the face of Kitchen Finks?
No, I don't think I'm going for the burn plan.
For what it's
but
worth, I 100% agree. I do think I like the lightning bolts though.
You like lightning bolt in the deck? Okay.
Kind of. I mean, what I've found with decks like this and decks similar to this is you'll get to like 2 and you'll be like, I need a huge number of cards to get to this place again.
That
and
is
deal
true.
this last inkling of damage. I mean, taking a look at, say, Sneak and Show from Legacy, obviously, going Grizzlebrand into drawing 14 cards and being like, I got enough Emeralds to last me a lifetime right now, is completely different to, you know, for Grizzlebrand, for Emrakul, and more expensive ways to get them out.
But I mean, in the situation where you're going for the burn plan, are you going for the shot to the heart? Because
Look, I don't think it's something you'd bring in, but I like having access to it just to get that other bit of damage in. I think if Dominic had taken a little more damage from his lands initially, he would have been punished severely.
yes, definitely. If he'd gone for fetch shock on turn 1 and turn 2, then he would have just been dead.
Yeah.
But because he had sort of relatively pain-free lands,
I think even if he went like fetch shock into fetch, just like, you know, sitting on that 16 points of life, it's a lot easier to tap out in Sphinx's Wrath for 2 when you're on 2 life than when you are on 1. And it might sound, you know, very micro and almost irrelevant. There is, you know, a substantial difference.
but it will be interesting to see how the counter magic coming in from Dominic's side changes this matchup. I think it means that John has to play a lot safer, has to make sure that he has, you know, the Is It Charm to counter back or his own Dispel to counter back, and he can't just jam into open mana as
So
freely.
if you're John, what do you bring in for this matchup?
Yeah, I would definitely bring in the 2 Dispel. I think that John has also seen Dominic's deck list. He knows that the counter magic is coming in post sideboard. He also will know that the relics are coming in. So I think he probably
Would you bring
wants.
the Vandal Blast?
I'm not sure that I'd bring in Vandal Blast. I might bring in Echoing Truth.
Sure.
Um,
But I don't. Oh, so John's written Echoing Truth, but it kind of looks like a choir. So choir truth. Either an ode to my inability to read or to his handwriting. Either way, he does have access to one Echoing Truth, and I think that is definitely better than the Vandal Blast. That was my suggestion.
Yeah. It's just depending on whether you want more answers to the relic. It does sort of seem like a deck that's playing so many Is It Charms, Serum Visions, Faithless Lootings. There's a certain amount of just powering through the relic. Just, it's first relic, you just go through it, and then...
Gorriers generally has the potential to kill on turn 1 or turn 2. This deck is a little bit slower, so I think it's a turn 2, turn 3 deck, unless it's got all the Simian Spirit Guides and just a perfectly crafted hand. Would you prefer the access to the Nourishing Shoal kind of Worldspire Worm type deck, or...?
I think that in general, this version is probably... It seems like this version should be more consistent to me. It's... just because you play the full 4 Is It Charms, 4 Serum Visions, 4 Faithless Lootings, you're playing the Jaces. It just depends how much value you really get from having Thoughtseize and Lightning Bolt in your deck, especially at 2 of each. If you draw, game 1 against, say, Affinity or a Zoo or something like that, and you draw the wrong one, you're going to feel not so good.
I can see that. Do you think you'll be keeping in the Thoughtseizes in this match?
I would keep in the Thoughtseizes because the counter magic coming in. Lightning Bolt would come out despite the fact it won me game 1, I think.
What about Dark Blast?
Dark Blast is not for this matchup. I probably wouldn't bring it in. It would. It does answer things like Lingering Souls and Snapcaster, and it does sort of fill your graveyard, but it fills your graveyard in a sort of very random way. So if you hit a Emrakul at the wrong moment, you're probably pretty unhappy. Okay.
So we've had Dark Slick Straws into a Seagrim Coast. I'm still thinking at Aussie at this point.
Yes, I think so. I think at this point I'm probably...
Do you think it's intentional?
Well, no. I think that these lands are just good in your deck. But it wouldn't surprise me. That's sort of the difference you get between playing in the top 8 and knowing exactly what deck your opponent's playing. Because I imagine if this matchup happened in the Swiss rounds and John didn't put Dominic on something like Ad Nauseam and did give him credit for a control deck, he would have to play around counter magic. But
so what are your thoughts on Dominic having a sideboard of like 3 Ad Nauseam, 4 Angel's Graves, 2 Lightning Storm, and a Lab Maniac?
Just sideboard into the Ad Nauseam combo.
Ad Nauseam. Maybe play another land or 2.
It's an interesting idea, but I think missing out on the Pentad Prisms and Lotus Blooms might, damage your chances.
Well, I mean, I tried. Looking back the game, unfortunately not much has happened. John is looking to play a Jace, and then we've got to Dismember
Jace.
To life.
Yeah, so both games now Dominic has just immediately answered Jace as soon as he could.
Which is interesting. I think he realizes that it's, the big... He can answer it. As opposed to some of the other threats.
Yes, that is very true. He has more ways.
Do you keep Dismember in this matchup? Not a matter of Dominic keeping it in, but...
I think Dismember probably... Dismember's an interesting one because obviously it doesn't kill a Grizzlebrand or an Emrakul, but in terms of Grizzlebrand, it does probably cut them off of one activation, and it is a very cheap way to kill something like Jace. So I think Dismember is probably good in this matchup.
Okay.
Good to leave it.
I mean, it's true. He's only playing 1, so if you draw it, it's great. If you don't draw it, that's also fine.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want a whole lot of them, but in terms of wanting a couple of early interactive spells to remove a Jace, it's one of the better ones, I think.
I really like what Dominic's done with his deck. It's almost like he's taken kind of like a blue-white Yuya deck and chucked in a whole bunch of black singletons. And I think the effect is actually working here. He crushed Swiss. He seems to be doing relatively well in top 8. He has had to fight through quite a few Malira decks from what I can tell. But honestly, I like the deck. I like where it's going. There are a few things that I would play that maybe he wouldn't. He seems very prepared for the burn matchup, whereas I'm less likely. I probably also wouldn't play 4 verdicts, and I would chuck in some gifts. But ultimately, I really like this deck.
I think Gifts Ungiven would be very interesting in this deck, just because it gives you a means to end the game very quickly. Or at least shut down your opponent's game plan very quickly.
I think even if you didn't have like the gifts package of like Elish and Unburial, Iona, etc., you just have access to all of these.
Yeah, it is just an excellent value card.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether maybe that's why Relic is in there instead of Rest in Peace. Possibly because what this deck did once have gifts in it.
Sure.
That could be a reason, it seems to me. Okay, just going for a Snapcaster, targeting Serum Visions. Just sculpting a hand.
As far as Dominic's concerned, John is not putting any pressure on him. John's cracked two fetches and played Jace.
That's it. I'm wondering whether John's keep was perhaps a hand that was looking to leverage Jace quite heavily, and unfortunately it got killed before even one activation.
Alternatively, he could be waiting for something like this and just goes Faithful Fluting into Gorgo's. My Emrakul puts you down to 2 again, struggle for a few turns.
Okay, so
end of turn is a charm.
Okay, so drawing 2.
Serum Visions and the land as far as I can see. Oh, it might be an Echoing Current.
Discarding Simeon's Spirit Guide and a blue spell. So no luck on finding a large creature yet.
Yeah, that's how I've found multiple lands.
So
Serum Visions.
okay, so that's a Grizzlebrand on the scry there, and another card which I can't quite see.
Does he have a Grizzlebrand in hand?
I haven't
He keeps
quite
both on top.
seen.
I could just be cracking a fetch though.
Keeping both. It's interesting that he seemed to leave the other card, the non-Grizzlebrand card, on top of Grizzlebrand.
As I said, I think he's actually got Grizzlebrand in hand.
Yeah. But I believe it was a blue spell, so I'm just wondering what.
I think he has both.
No, on the scry. I'm wondering what blue spell he was keeping, because it feels like, without knowing exactly what's in his hand, it feels like he right now is looking for a Through the Breach or something. It could have been a Dispel, possibly, and he just already has the Reanimation or the Through the Breach.
He's got some protection there.
Yeah, that seems like a very reasonable.
Yeah, Dominic's got minimal ways to stop this from happening, and counter magic is just one of them.
So Dominic opting to play a Wall of Omens just to cycle. It's interesting. I'm wondering how much keeping Wall of Omens is a matter of just needing to cantrip through to hit land drops in this deck.
He's tapped out in this instance, kind of. Well, he's played the land. I think he's very heavily repping Discover here.
He is, but I'm just wondering whether.
He kept a Serum Visions on top.
Okay.
To draw into the Grizzlebrand, maybe?
Yes, it will just draw into the Grizzlebrand and then see another 2 cards. So that looks like an Emrakul and something else.
Both to the bottom.
Which go to the bottom, okay. It's possible, yeah. But yeah, I'm wondering how much Dominic keeping Wall of Omens in against this deck is just a matter of needing to cantrip through his deck to keep hitting land drops.
I actually don't like the fetch though.
It does seem, yeah, depending on where we are in the turn cycle, I assume it's end of turn.
I'm just trying to get some text on Gario's functions at the moment specifically. So exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So in response, John could have loot, return, and just keep an Emrakul.
It wouldn't
It
get
doesn't
to
do anything,
attack though. That's the thing. He could put a
Yeah, sure.
Grizzlebrand in and draw a bunch of cards, which would have been
Nifty.
pretty good.
Well, he had the Grizzlebrand. I think, as we said, I think he's missing the discard outlet here.
It does seem that way. It seems like he's trying to assemble this contraption and he's just a little bit away from it. Okay, so he's going for a fetch, so he'll be shuffling back in those cards he pushed to the bottom.
So we've had a pretty interesting day at the modern event. We gave a meta breakdown earlier of just kind of like the archetypes we were seeing. Top it off, we had one spread deck, two living end decks, two Grixis control decks, two blue, white, red Kiki decks, two Esper control decks. I'm just going to pause that for a second.
Yeah, so we have a Thoughtseize coming out of John, just getting to see Dominic's hand. So we do see the Dispel there, and then we have Liliana and
Sun
Titan and Snapcaster.
Take the Dispel, right?
I assume you want to take the Dispel, but it just depends.
Snapcaster
Yeah,
as
because Snap can just come in and flash back the Dispel, so it's a little difficult. And then you've got Liliana to contend with as well, which is going to come down and just start,
Eating your hand.
yeah, slowly eating
Which is
your
why
hand.
I'm not necessarily agreeing with John playing all these lines.
Yeah. And then you've got Sun Titan as well, which threatens to bring back either Liliana or Snapcaster. So there's actually a really difficult hand to Thoughtseize, I think. Okay, so he's opted to take
I
Snapcaster.
think you have to in this case.
Yeah, it's
Like
true.
if you Sun Titan and bring it back, it's got very little value at the moment.
Yeah, if he goes for it straight away, and then it is, yeah, it's difficult for Sun Titan bringing back Snapcaster to be relevant with Dispel.
Continuing on, we've got a blue rune deck, just one, called the Jason Chung deck. Three Malera Company decks. This is the one Goryo's Vengeance that we saw today. We had one Next Level Junk deck, one Knight Zoo deck, four Affinity decks, one Infect, three blue-white Eldrazi, one Enchantment and Control deck, which had some sweet Isochron Scepter things happening.
Oh, we have Through the Breach here, which has
It's
been dispelled.
Blue-white red Eldrazi. Unfortunately, that didn't seem to do too well today. It was a combination of blue-white Eldrazi with things like Obligator. We were trying for a different
Quite
build.
powerful.
Bant Eldrazi, one copy, three elves, one green-red Eldrazi, two what we're calling the three spike feeder, four red, Archangel of Thune decks. One blue-red Eldrazi, one Big Zoo, one Ad Nauseam, one Scape Shift, one Hate Bears, one Junk Mid-Range, one green-white Amaria deck, one Lantern Control, which was great to watch, one Jump deck, and two blue-white Yuya Watanabe decks. Which wraps up the 44 decks that we saw today. Daniel, if you'd been playing today, what would you have been playing?
Today it would have been between some type of blue-white Eldrazi deck or the company, Malira.
Looking forward to the GP next weekend, have you locked up a deck?
I don't know that I've locked in solidly, but I do think that there are a couple of very clear front runners in the format. You know, in Eldrazi, in Affinity, and then I think that past that, the Malira Company deck is good, and Infect is good. So those would be my predictions for the field.
What is your advice to anyone turning up to the GP next weekend who's either never played a GP before, it's their first constructed GP, or they're just a bit lost?
The classic thing
lots
that
of water?
yes, drink lots of water, stay hydrated. No, but in seriousness, get there early, know where you're going, have yourself some kind of snack or something planned, and just play the same magic you play every other time.
Play something you're comfortable with?
Yes, just know what you're doing. Don't get flustered or worried because it's your first big event. Play the same match.
We've just seen Dominic play a Suntide to bring back Snapcaster. John is dealing 2 damage to. Is it Charm?
Is it charming a Snapcaster?
Sorry, is it charming a Snapcaster, not dealing 2 damage?
In order to not die, so this is looking pretty grim. He seems to be hellbent as well, so this is gonna need to be pretty good. And he scoops him up.
We're going to a game 3. John is now back on the play. Let's see how quickly this deck can either kill or fumble.
Yes. It does feel like John being on the play is a pretty big advantage for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just being able to get in there early.
I think the ability to kill Dominic before he's played his land drop must be pretty good.
Yeah, some amount of games you get to kill him before he does anything. But you're also just more likely to get a Jace activation.
Yeah.
Or
it's
to
imminently dismembered as it
Yes.
has been the past 2 games.
And you're more likely to get to sort of sculpt everything perfectly.
I agree.
As opposed to, I think if you're on the draw, there's probably more situations where you're forced to just go for it.
What cards do you think are worse for Dominic on the draw?
Worse in Dominic's deck. So I believe that the negates get worse, but they're probably still in the deck. I believe all of his removal that costs more than 1 becomes worse. So Go for the Throat, for example. Liliana is worse on the draw. Just because it's so much more likely that your opponent's already deployed their game plan rather than you being able to just erode their hand. Other than that,
It's interesting to see Forbidden Alchemy being played here.
it is
Cards
interesting.
either being severely underplayed or is just being underwhelming.
I'm surprised to see Forbidden Alchemy. It sort of feels to me like it's sort of standing in for mystical teachings, but he wants the graveyard synergies with his Sun Titan plan. That sort of seems like maybe what's going on here, I think.
We just saw John reveal his hand, kind of. They're showing how they bought it. Are they?
I think we might be seeing some mulligans. I'm not quite sure.
So it turns out that they were showing the hands to us, but The other gentleman was courteous enough to turn away and not look when they were showing us.
I see.
That's nice
There
of
was
them.
there was a gentleman's agreement to look away
To
while
look
they
away.
revealed their
I
hands.
walked in, I'm like, are you guys mulliganing? Like, what's happening? And they're like, oh no, we showed our hands. And I'm like, to each other? And they're like, oh no, we looked away. And I was like, oh, that's sweet.
Fair enough. So John has started with a pretty powerful start here. The turn 1 Faithless Looting gets to see, a couple of extra cards, gets to ditch any of Grizzlebrand's into the graveyard. It's probably his best start, I imagine.
Okay, but what about Simeon Spirit Guide, Mana throws into Gorgo's Vengeance in
Yes.
your back and just slamming?
Outside of killing your opponent on turn 1.
No, it's not putting him to 13.
Well,
Jeez.
that's very true.
That's
Ooh. That is a
He
turn
doesn't
1
have the mana
relic.
to activate it this turn. He can only take out one random card.
It is true, but John also discarded Through the Breach and a land on his Faithless
So it
Looting
doesn't
last
look
turn.
like it's superb, but
So I don't think he's going to be going for it this turn, unless he has multiple Simeon Spirit Guides, right? And that relic.
he would need multiple Simeon Spirit Guides.
Oh,
we
we do
see
have
Jace.
Jace. Jace has showed up on turn 2 each one of these
I
games.
feel like this is the one deck where you don't really care about Jace on turn 2, but it keeps happening.
And-
Speaking to a couple of the guys who play this, both the Pro Tour and I guess otherwise, Jace just almost seems a bit slow.
Yeah, he is quite slow just because it's one card per turn, whereas most of your other effects that you're churning through your deck are sort of 2 cards
Also, I think
for your
it'd be
2
very
mana.
rare where you're wanting to use Jace for his flashback or his ultimate.
Oh.
For his plus or his ultimate. So it's mainly just something you want to loot with. And as we can see, John's graveyard was pretty full. But it looks like you might get to actually loot with Jace this time.
Yes, I was waiting for the removal
Surprise,
spell, but
surprise.
it doesn't seem to be a
Oh,
thing.
Jace is looting. As we can see, John is in no hurry to flip this Jace. He's not aggressively fetching and casting spells to get that to happen. I think Dominic was pausing there thinking about maybe pathing the Jace.
Yes.
I think if your opponent discards land through the breach, you are probably wanting to...
It's true that leaving Jace around would...
He's discarding another land. Like, the sooner that Dominic gets rid of this Jace, the better.
The land discard's interesting. That means he must have a whole lot of lands in his hand, because it feels like he must be going for Through the Breach here, like ramping up towards it, but then
Ramping up by
discarding
playing
it.
lands.
Yes.
So
that-
he could just have multiple through the breaches in hand.
It does seem that way.
Safe to say we are sufficiently confused. So we know Dominic's got a Gideon in hand, a couple of lands, we saw the relic as well.
I am wondering with this live Jace, until you can remove Jace, how much value is there to actually removing 1 card per turn with Relic of Progenitus, or whether you're better off just letting Jace flip?
I think Jace flipped is certainly less dangerous here. If your opponent is minusing to flashback through the breach,
Yeah. Especially when you have the Relic, which you can just, cash that in to remove.
I don't necessarily know that I'd be, letting the graveyard fill up, but as long as I've got 1 mana up, there's no harm in it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting spot like that. Whether the looter is actually the better side of Jace in this deck. So the Serum Vision Scry sees Emrakul. Not quite sure, but it's something that John's having to think about. So.
We've just had a comment from someone, what even is this finals that I'm witnessing? Haha. Believe me, I'm also kind of questioning what's happening right now. I guess we'll find out soon. One deck is going to kill the other really quickly, or one deck's going to take ages to kill the other. From what it looks like, John's either setting up for just a massive turn where Dominic taps low. It's not looking good with the amount of lands that we're seeing.
Okay, so Jace to draw the top card, discard a land, and then play a land. So he's hit the 4 mana. So it'd be interesting to see if we are going to see some Through the Breach
Has Dominic missed a land drop?
action.
No, he hasn't. That's my mistake.
No, thus far he hasn't missed land.
That's right, he was on the draw list.
But
It doesn't look like John's ever going to miss his land drops.
okay, and Dominic, yep, hits his 4th land. Fetching to grab a jewel. His mana base is sort of looking a little awkward right now, so
Yeah.
yep.
Watery Grave might just show it up.
Yeah, I think Watery Grave makes it quite good, but
He just had a lot of white sources. Quite a few white sources.
and wondering if he's going to be able to tap for something here, or
Well, he's going to remove another land from John's graveyard. I believe we have seen this before.
okay, taps 3 for a Lingering Souls. Just going to start putting some pressure on John.
All the while holding up a white source and the relic.
Yes, it does.
John's getting awfully close to just hard casting away his beasts.
Okay, we have the Echoing Truth to bounce the relic, so
Do you pop it now?
I
I don't actually think you do.
don't think it gets you very much value, and I think you're better off going, that's fine, I've got a dispel, like,
So we see
you
a
do you,
Garter's
man.
in his hand. Jace is gonna flip.
Jace
That's
is
an
gonna
Emrakul.
flip.
Trigger on the stack. Goryo's a
Is it? Okay, so Jace Jace flipping.
flips, and then Emrakul's trigger goes on the stack.
Yep. Okay.
Does he have the dispel?
Goryo's. Does Dominic have the dispel? And then does John have the dispel back?
Ooh, we could be fighting, boys.
Or the Is It Charm? Okay,
He
so
does,
Dominic does.
And he does.
Oh.
Is he leaving up Lightning Bomber? That's...
So who has the better dispel art though?
Dominic is asking what he's targeting with the dispel. Garyo is going to dispel Aethos. Is he going to announce his Annihilating trigger?
I think he might this time. But okay, yep. Graveyard's being shuffled in. He's attacking. Presumably saying Annihilator very loudly a lot of times.
Annihilator, number 6. 6 permanents, sacrifice them.
And yep, Dominic sacks.
So, you know, I mean, technically the Emrakul trigger goes on the stack, and Jace, I believe, is meant to flip after it.
Yeah, I'm not sure it matters too much,
you know, it doesn't
here,
really
but
matter here.
yeah. But Dominic, yes, has been.
Dominic has a Celestial Colonnade. He can now cast his Relic of Progenitors.
He can. And hey, maybe that's enough to keep him alive for a few turns, because as we've seen, this Grixis Goryo's deck doesn't have a whole lot of ways to deal damage outside of reanimating something.
So Emrakul goes to the Exile Zone. Dominic untaps.
Just wondering if we're going to see some hard cast
it'll be
Simian Spirit Guide beats.
Well, no, I mean, like, you can... so he's gonna play the Relic.
Yep.
I honestly don't think you do cast him in Spirit Guide. I think it's just blocked by so many of Dominic's things.
Yeah.
The fact that he he had the second land drop as well. That's another dispel. I didn't quite see what the top card was.
Yeah.
John's keeping the top card though, and bottoming a dispel, which is fair enough. I very much doubt they're going to be fighting a counter war anytime soon. Flashback. Harem Visions to draw the top card.
Okay.
Wonder what it is.
That's
Didn't even get to see it. I'm so sad.
There's the spirit guide.
He also has relic mana up, I guess, but he would have to take quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean he has
do so.
to pay the 1 life. I'm assuming he has additional basics left. Yes, he
It's
does.
1 island, 2 swamps, and 2 plains.
So he can get.
But either way, right? If you are in this position, you have 2 lands. You almost certainly want to be using your fetch line to get a dual land and try and set yourself up for whatever happens.
It's definitely going to make it easier to cast.
I am on Team Simian Spirit Beatdown, but I don't think it'll work.
It just depends how much you think being able to add that extra mana is worth at this point as well. But John did play a Creeping Tar Pit there, so he has elected to make a more powerful attacker than a 2/3 for 3.
Yeah. I have to say, it is definitely better than Simian Spirit Guide Beatdown.
I'm wondering what percentage of games with this deck you end up winning with Creeping Tar Pit as opposed to
Well, it's
actually
like
attacking with a
damage, right?
monster. Like,
The monsters are getting like anywhere between 7 and 15 damage across, right?
yeah.
It is not Worldspire work. I'm disappointed.
I do feel like it'd be a decent number of games that you win by Creeping Tar Pitting them. Okay, so Dominic plays a land. Just passes the turn. And
Yeah, but Dominic's surely going to have a removal spell here.
he didn't have one for Jace, so has he drawn one in the intermittent period of time? He has. It's a Path to Exile.
Response bolt? No? Sad.
Well, this is the spot where the shot to the heart would be very
Even
good.
gut shot. Just slam it.
Just one time.
Would you use your 1 time for this though?
I would not.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I agree.
This does not seem like the most
Some guy
excellent
just used
one-time
one time out there.
choice.
He's like, 1 time I need Supreme Verdict. Or it was Supreme Verdict. It was gas. But he wasted his 1 time on a Supreme Verdict. So
And the Supreme Verdict.
does that really say?
Alright.
Activate Relic, exile the Faithless Looting.
So he does have the Graveyard Bear at this point. So the Relic is considerably more on than it was previously.
I would love to see Dominic come back with this game.
It's going to be a long road, but he's got a chance.
Control does what Control do the Control thing.
Pretty much. Okay, so what are we seeing here?
Lingering Souls?
Ooh. He's opted to put the clock on, but
I don't think the 2 mana clock is really what we're, sorry, the 2 power clock is really what we're after. Jace ticks up
it's
on 1.
actually,
Sorry,
yes,
it's
a
a
1 power clock.
Make 1 1.
I think we're contemplating the Hardcaster Simmons Spirit Guide.
Jeez.
Do it. Do it. Yes!
Yes! It happened! Can't
Okay.
wait for this to get blocked so hard, but come on, he did it.
Okay, so Lingering Souls versus Simian Spirit Guide dual decks. Here we go.
I can't believe this is happening. I am simultaneously excited and very disappointed.
I'm wondering whether he left the lightning bolts in his deck. I said I would take them out, and I think that's right, but we'll have to see.
He can't cast the Simian Spirit Guide. Get there.
Okay.
But like Dominic literally has approximately infinite chump blockers at this point, so.
And I believe he attacked Jace. just then.
With
So
the one that was negged?
with the one that was not negged. The one that was negged is blocking.
One time Spirit Guide get there.
Okay, so flashing back Lingering Souls. Yep.
Making some more dudes.
If you were going to cast Lingering Souls last turn, you're definitely casting Lingering Souls this turn.
But you do it with Relic Up this time.
Yes, it's considerably safer this time.
So,
Is that a second Spirit Guide? Could we see
double
dual...
Spirit Guide beads. Or a Lightning Bolt, you know? Is that a Vandal Blast?
That's
No,
a
it's
Faithless Looting. Okay. Alright, so... Yeah. So Faithless Looting is going to resolve. Unfortunately, it seems to have found 2 lands. It does look like there's Agorios in hand, though, so we are very close.
Goryo's back to Simeon Spirit Guide.
Oh.
They could always just flash back the Faithless Looting, you know?
Yeah, Okay, yep.
He's got the Spirit Guide, so he can cast the Goryo's after this resolves.
That is very true.
Jace and Spirit Guide.
Okay, so...
Goryo's back the Jace, flip another Jace. Thoughts?
Seems like an interesting choice, but probably not the winningest one. Plus on a Spirit, and then presumably Rumble, yeah. Here we
If
are.
you're Dominic, do you single block like you've been doing with all the kitchen things, or do you double block?
I think you definitely single block here because you
yeah.
can't possibly kill the Spirit Guide. But... Oh, pathing a Simeon Spirit Guide.
Okay.
Or he's pathing his own spirit. Okay, I see.
Yeah. Fair enough. Needs must.
That 1 mana ramp spell. Alright. That is actually true. He has a Gideon in hand, I believe.
He does.
And if he actually gets to the 5 mana, that's pretty good.
He might have the land in hand as well. Oh, but he's on 1.
He does. Yeah.
This is a you know, a DIY fetch land. Or like a DIY evolving wilds.
It's a pretty awkward rampant growth, I think. But yeah, like... Okay.
Right, draw snap. Get there. No, attack.
Alright.
Beats. Oh. Supreme Verdict? I don't see how that benefits like anyone.
Supreme Verdict seems pretty risky here. Oh, okay, we got a Ghost Quarter. And we've got Gideon. Okay. Gideon going...
Was he playing around like
up.
Spell Pierce or something? I mean, like with the
Gideon going down and killing the Simeon Spirit Guide. Simeon Spirit Guide is getting a lot of respect.
I mean, you have to, right?
Yes.
For a 2/2, it's, you know, pay that.
I'm just wondering if it's not better to plus Gideon and leave a spirit back. I suppose you sort of slowly kill your own clock.
Well, I mean, now Dominic can just jam. Unless John, you know, spends another turn casting a Spirit Guide.
Yeah. You're just really hoping that John doesn't have anything here, though.
Which he doesn't.
Yeah, he gets away with it. So that is the thing with a deck that is designed so heavily to create this contraption. When it can't find all of its relevant pieces, a lot of its cards just don't really do anything. John's got a bunch of cards in hand, but nothing that he really wants to cast. Zeroing Gideon and getting in there. Alright, so this
now
is...
on 6, like...
Yeah, we are going to decide this game very, very soon.
Relic is still there.
Relic is still there.
It's funny how we've seen John's deck just do so much damage so quickly and then fail to be able to do much.
Yeah, just can't close it out.
Yeah. So I think this deck definitely needs a lightning bolt. One time. Come on.
I mean, he did it last time. Maybe right off the top here, it's a lightning bolt. I do not believe it was lightning bolt. That seems to be a thought seize.
Seems pretty miserable in this spot.
Yeah, not the best. Okay. Yep, we're casting.
Block the Gideon, I assume.
Yes, so this time we're hard casting Simian Spirit Guide as the chump blocker.
I've done that.
It's less
It's sad, but I've done
less
that.
appealing, but
Yeah.
hey, you do what you gotta do.
Some tiny dice for Jace. A piece of paper for a token.
That's the token that has the
-2,
-2, -0, but. Alright. Well, let's see what Dominic can do here. Is this the Snapcaster? The Snapcasteress of Mages would be quite good. No. Oh, it is.
It is?
Okay.
Snapcaster, Path to Exile, the Spirit Guide. Let's see what John's got.
It does seem like that's supposed to be the play. Echoing Truth on the Gideon. Yes, because of the Jace plus, it would get there. So John's used the Dispel to keep his Simian Spirit Guide alive.
So now Spirit Guide will trade off with Snap.
Which means, yeah, he goes to 1, I think.
If you'd drawn the line, he also could have activated Colonnade here.
That's true.
Either way, I think Dominic's got this locked up. What do you think?
John's got a draw step,
He
and
does,
he's
he
got a
does.
Goryo's in hand, so things could happen. You don't know.
Oh, he's got another
he's got another path.
So he's
Okay,
taking 1, 2, 3, 8 damage.
that is lethal unless John.
You could have an Is It Charm.
Yes, John. Oh. Does it need to be an Echoing Truth? Is that?
I mean, he's got no blockers, so actually, I think it can be either. I think he needs a removal spell here.
Goryo's targeting Jace.
Jeez. Oh
Exile
my God.
my relic, and there we have
We have
it.
seen it. We have also seen Jace being brought back to do sad things.
Jace Goryo's back to chump block.
I mean, sometimes you gotta do what you can. Sometimes all you can do is try. And John tried. He got lots of damage in, and just unfortunately, it breaks. It happens. Sometimes Jace does sad things, and there's nothing you can do about it.